Hey, Sean. So first, I did fix the Lalima site and included the link for part two of the video. It adds about another 15 minutes for you. So that's the first part of what you were asking for. Um, and I'm just reminding myself here because I think you have an even earlier email too. Just making sure. Yes. Okay. So let's just start with your earliest email first, and then I'll kind of work forward from that. Um, so for chapter 17, looks like you got these two questions here. Okay. So you put money into an account and earn a real interest rate of 4%, inflation is 2%, and marginal tax rate is 25%. What is your after tax real rate of interest? Okay. So to solve this, right? So keeping in mind the fact that the nominal interest rate, as you kind of say here, the nominal interest rate equals the real interest rate plus inflation. So that part is true. But you're saying here what's throwing you off is the marginal tax rate. So um, with the marginal tax rate of 25%, what that does is it's going to take off. Um, it's going to take off 1/4 of the amount. Um, after tax real rate of interest. So at 4%, um, times inflation rate at 2%, which would reduce the value. um, what am I missing here? Um, oh, sorry. Yeah, that's why. Um, so you're um, if you're being taxed, right? So the idea here, and the thing that might be throwing you off, is that you are the saver in this case. So if you're putting your money into an account and it's earning 4% in real terms, um, and the marginal tax rate is 25%, then what's going to happen? Um, why is this? So the 4 plus the 2 gives us 6% as a nominal rate. So that's what you would get at at the bank. So you'd get 6% at the bank in nominal terms. Take off 1.5. So the real interest rate of 4 plus the inflation of 2 gives you a nominal of 6. And a fourth of that is 1.5. After tax, real rate of interest would be the 4 minus the 1.5. So it's giving us 2.5%. So I'm hoping 2.5% is our correct answer here. Um, oh, and this is just the same question. Okay. I'll double check that before I give you the link for this video. Then let me get to your other emails here. Okay, so as I said, I did post the video for La Lima. So the biggest thing I can say here to kind of help you understand this a little bit better is, yes, aggregate demand, aggregate supply is a different graph. It emerges because what we're trying to do is we're trying to explain why the economy fluctuates in the short run, around the fact that it doesn't fluctuate in the long run because it's kind of fixed at what the physical capacity of the country is. And so John Maynard Keynes, during the time of the Great Depression, came up with a theory that could talk about how you could adjust the economy in the short run, but how you cannot adjust it in the long run with just using monetary policy. And so the aggregate demand curve gives us an idea of the component of the GDP: consumption, investment, government spending, and net exports. CIGNX. That's all in the aggregate demand curve. And what we need to changing consumption, investment, government spending, or net exports would shift the aggregate demand curve either to the left or to the right. But the other thing we need to understand is, why is it downward sloping? And for that, we have the interest rate effect, the real wealth effect, and what that does is it helps explain why it's downward sloping, which is the point of your other email here, the wealth effect. Why is that explaining why it's downward sloping? Because if we draw out the aggregate demand space, and I can't because unfortunately we're on the screen here, price would be on the y-axis. Aggregate demand is downward sloping. So as the price falls, lower prices increase the value of the holdings and people spend more. So yes, so the amount of consumption would be going up because the price is falling. Thus, we'd move to the right along the aggregate demand curve. You wouldn't want it to be decreasing because that would be moving to the left along the curve, not to the right along the curve. The wealth effect has nothing to do with the fact that we're largely talking about not interest rate effects, because that's obviously a different effect, but we're really talking about consumption spending here. You can't tell, is that the same? Or you just asked this one question? Okay. So yeah, so when we say negative and positive effect on the curves, we're talking about moving to the left or the right along the aggregate demand curve. That's what we're really talking about there. And so going back to your question here, yeah, let's try to explain this as best I can here. So real GDP on the x-axis, price level on the y-axis. Aggregate demand is downward sloping, and aggregate demand consists of C, I, G, and NX. And my long run aggregate supply curve is here. And my short run can either be upward sloping or completely horizontal, depending on how short run you really are talking here. But the idea here is that something could happen that could shift the AD curve to the right, causing in the short run a temporary deviation from our long run position of the economy. Yet eventually, we might find ourselves moving back to that level, albeit at higher prices. Okay. I guess, Sean, the best advice I have for you for this chapter, and I know this might not be the best advice, but the best advice I can really provide you here is watch my chapter 20, right? And you watch my video. Maybe it might just be that this chapter is not registering with you as well as with my lecture style as others. So, fortunately, I'm not the only one out there who's making videos. Um, if I just type in a search term, chapter 20, thank you, I bet you someone else has done it. Um, yeah, and someone else has here. Someone else has done the lecture as well. And so you might find it easier to watch someone else's lecture.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to chapter 20 aggregate demand and aggregate supply.
And maybe this guy knows what he's talking about even more, and so it might be even clearer. Or this person that made a 3-minute video that just talks about it as well. I'm not trying to push off my work to someone else, but it might just be that when I'm talking about it, it might not. This might just be a chapter where you and I are not seeing things in the same way, and it's not registering as quickly as you need it to. Sean, I hope that helps. I'm not sure if I'm really as adequately answering your questions as I did in the past, so just let me know if you want to chat.